Welcome back to the show. Today's topic, making friends, or why men need to make more friends. I think one of my early episodes talked about the importance of men having more friends, men having more relationships, especially as we're going into, or as we look forward to the later part in our lives. If you are in your later part of your life and you're in that situation, you know how depressing it is, you know how lonely it is, you know how you look back and say, I should have made more friends, I should have had more acquaintances, I should have valued relationships a whole lot more, if I could have done this, if I could have done that. So, and again, a podcast with way more, millions of more listeners and subscribers talked about this and had a guest on that show that has made a paper, a scholarly paper, or just an observation of what men tend to, or the lack of relationships that men have in the later parts of our lives when we're in nursing homes, where we're closer to our end story than we are in the middle or the beginning. And it leads to the numbers that we all know. I'm not going to bombard you with the numbers of depression and suicide and that, or, subscription takers, just to dull the pain of, the alcoholism and drug abuse that, it's all encompassing. And the fact that men have been taught isolation, that men have been taught to keep, your feelings, inside, and whether you're an ex-military or whether you've had some kind of police officer, firefighter kind of trauma, it's difficult to be vulnerable, to open up. It's just not the way we were brought up, and it's not the way uh it's acceptable even now, even in a society that tends to be leaning feminine or leaning towards the women. Like, it's not okay still for men to open up, to have feelings. It's still deemed weak. It's deemed a beta male attribute. It's deemed not a leader uh quality. And so we tend to just, bullshit about sports, bullshit about, what girl we want to sleep with, bullshit about how, or not bullshit, but just chop it up about how fucked up our life is, or how crazy our wife is, or how fucked up our kids are, or how crazy this is, or how crazy that is. So we just kind of tend to sugarcoat it, but it never tends to lead more than that. And even when I've seen it with males that do tend to invite another male, hey, come over, I have a barbecue and stuff. They'll come over maybe one or two times, but then it becomes uncomfortable, because even though it's comfortable for you, the odds are that it's gonna be uncomfortable for that other man, because he's like, what is he, kind of secretly gay? Does he like me? What's up? Because we're just not used to it. And that's something, a stigma that we have to kind of move and push past it. I'm not going to talk about whether, having more friends can then take away the dependency on men and women and that relationship pair bond, because I don't think there's anything that could, obviously, just the fact that it's men and women that could substitute that bond that the male and female species has. But just like what the science says, having more relationships leads to happier lives, leads to more fulfilling lives, leads to more interactions, leads to you being active, leads to you moving around, not just in your home stuck, being miserable in some kind of state. So if you have female friends, if you have male friends, if you have just people platonically that you get along with, that you have to, just like every relationship, it has to be forced. If you're expecting this kind of friendship where it's just gonna happen and they're always gonna come over cheerfully and it's just gonna be so effortless for you to have friends because it's just this great set of peoples, I have some hard truths to tell you. It's that's not the way it works. Just like business relationships, romantic relationships, relationships with our parents, and relationships with friends and acquaintances. Guess what? If you want quality relationships, you're going to have to make an effort. And we've become so lazy that we don't want to make that effort. What, like I said, for men, it maybe it's because like I said earlier, we've been told to suck everything in, don't show no emotions, so don't get past the surface. Maybe that's it. But we need to start having a serious a look into getting moving away from that stigma, moving away from the thing that, hey, it's a weird kind of a thing that he's inviting me over. No, it has to be normalized. It has to be something that we know it's to the outcome. Obviously, with communication direct and being like, hey, is there any intent, in case it gets to that point, and this is not like a one of those anti, those kind of message. The bond has to be normalized on top of just the normal football, basketball get together, which is just normal. Like, that's really macho. That's really like the alpha man, or what we a man love to do, barbecue and hang out. That's cool. And it's like every relationship, it's cool to have those in the high moments, and when it's good, but we have to have those man and female friends that we could just sit there and talk about real shit. And that's the friends that I'm talking about. The ones, the rah friends, we all have those, and those are easy to come by because it's easy to feel good. But to open up, to have those friends that you can open up and saying, "Hey, I feel like fucking, I'm having the suicidal thoughts, or I'm feeling really depressed, or you know what, I don't have anybody, I feel fucking happy, and I just don't have anybody else to tell it to, but let's go celebrate some kind of healthy outlet that you could get as real as you can get, especially for men when we reach, that age and later in age when we're gonna be by ourselves, when we're gonna be on this earth with no fathers, no mothers, and some of us know that experience already because at an early age. Some, early in the teens have experienced that, being on their own aspect, and have dealt with that decision or that conversation early on. And that's something that we're gonna have. Friends, families are gonna get older, move away and stuff. And as we men have been taught to devote ourselves to children, family, and all that stuff, we leave everything behind. And then when we see the numbers in divorce, we see how, I mean, I'm a father, and I know I have daughters now that's over 20. I get that some kids, you start your life just like you started your life. It's your turn, right? So then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I'm at this age, and I don't have no friends. I don't have no one that I could talk to. I don't have an avenue where I could, go hang out. No one's calling me just to, like, chill, or, I can't express, this. I can't, whatever. There's not that interaction that you have. And then again, it's already uncomfortable enough to be a man and try to even establish one of those things. So why even try? So then a lot of men lead to just being miserable, being alone. And that's the thing that we have to combat is, and how do we combat that? Again, by the message. Let's talk about the positivities. Let's stop making it a joke. Let's stop poking fun at it and be like, oh, it's kind of fucking gay. Nah, like, if there's, it's okay for men to sit there and be like, maybe two struggling husbands, sit back and be like, man, I don't know what's going on. Sometimes that's the best therapy than actually going to therapy, is just getting different perspective. That's why, like, Facebook groups, that's why, like, stuff like TikTok, where the, communities happen, and you could, like, have, even on Facebook, sometimes in the comments, in the comments, it's like a community, and they start helping each other and giving themselves advice. And that's a great thing. We have to start in those kind of areas, and we just have to start normalizing it now in our normal lives. It's great to sit there behind a screen, but we're talking about real interactions here, because the studies show that even though we're getting, yes, more connected through the internet, those connections are not substitutes for the real thing. The studies show depression's still going up. Everything's trending the opposite. If you would say, oh no, wait, look, there's communication. No, it's an outlet. It's a temporary fix to the overall thing. It's like being hungry but eating a Snickers. Eventually, you're just gonna say, "No, I'm the Snickers doesn't, satisfy me. I gotta eat something, bigger." And that's the thing. It's great there that those outlets are there. And my point is that that's why these things are so successful or so big, because it's good to be able to interact with people. But we got to start, moving those kind of things and bringing them into. And we see them. Some people have, some groups now have meetups, mixers with just men groups, and that's great to see. And especially in if it, you look into them in your town, go into your local Facebook groups and see if there's men groups that you could hang out. I get it, COVID, the distance, you don't want, but see, maybe you guys could go out, for a man hike or whatever, or just kind of like, if a bar's open at your, depending on what fucking state you're listening or at, go hang out at a bar, go play some darts, go throw some axes, go hang out with a shooting range, like, bros and guns and something, and meet up at a shooting range, put some, put money in the pot all together, someone, set up a group, whatever it is. There's a ton of stuff, but the that's why these groups are good. But we, again, we got to start moving these over to the real world. And again, I know there's groups doing that now, but we need to have that message champion more on a commercial level, on an every, making it okay. Let's talk about the seriousness of men needing friends, men needing other men and women. I know there's people, men and women can't, necessarily get along, and I'm one of them. I think that men usually are, we're driven by our sexual urges. Maybe towards later on, when those urges go away or mature, as they say, then you're able to have those kind of relationships. But men are men. Drugs, we get drunk or something, urges. I don't think men are programmed to have just platonic friends up to a certain age. But I'm definitely open to being wrong in that aspect. I've been proven several times that contradict that, my outlook in that, where I have to just be okay with saying, hey, I believe it one way, but it could definitely work, because I've been proven that in, like I said, plenty of instances where I'm wrong. So that's why I include men and women, even though there's people that say you can't be friends with women, but let's, we're talking about honesty here. We're talking about relationships that could save lives, that could save men's life. And even if there is those sexual urges, I'm a proponent of, you know what, if you want friends and you don't want to fuck up a friendship, or you want to value a friendship above your urges, then you're gonna surpass those urges, and you're going to want to see that person as a friend. And that's when you're just endearing, you're helpful, you're, as they call, not simping, you just have a different approach. But you're going to fight those urges, because you're attracted, you want to, you could if you would, or whatever, you definitely understand that. But you could pass that and have meaningful friendships. I've seen those more than the other ones. So that's why, I'm still not 50-50. I'm still more to my side than the other side, but I could definitely understand it. But again, we're talking about saving men's life. So again, it's important for men to start having relationships that it's going to lead to 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years into our elderly years. Again, ultimately, we're all gonna die alone, which is the saddest part and the darkest part of all this. No matter what, there's gonna be people around us, but they're not gonna die with us. They're not gonna experience the journey of whatever it is after we close our eyes. That's gonna be a journey we're gonna take, by ourselves. But no one wants to die in a table by themselves. But odds are, not odds are, but unfortunately, it is what it is. Life is unexpected and full of, surprises. And but we want to put our deck as best as we can, and I get it. We want people around us, we want people holding our hand, telling us that it's going to be okay, and that's the comforting feeling, knowing that there's going to be memories and amazingness and no regrets. Given the numbers, the quality of life in men and the depression rates and how they wish most of there was a study done, and the study from the podcast that I said, just the amount of men that were asked of what they regretted the most, and the fact that they didn't have meaningful friendships, that they didn't establish more more men, just friends, period. I don't want to say just men friends, but just friends in period. They didn't have just a more of a solid peer group, that they were alone, they didn't have no one to talk to. And call it being somewhere widowed and something like that. There's always variables to every study, and I'm sure you could sit there, and just like I could sit there and dissect that every study that we come up across to skew it to our viewpoint. But I thought the study was pretty straightforward. And not only, like I said, that study, there's been studies in the UK, studies in Canada, about the depression in men, the suicide rate in men, in older men, and why they're single, why so many men are single and alone in 65, 70, 75 years old, 80. And it's a sad thing. You hear those crazy one-off stories where some that have dementia have been forgotten, have no one to look out for them, and they get lost, and the hospital that they were staying at reported them, and tragically something happens. I mean, those are like the outliers, but it's sad to hear that just because we were told you know, a certain thing through media, through our peers, through society, to not open up, to not make more meaningful bonds, to, some people don't have brothers. Some people aren't even close to their brothers if they did. Some people were single kids. Some people were unfortunate in their draw. Something tragic happened, where circumstances they are what they are, right? But at the end of the day, the numbers are just through the roof about how many just men are living in depression, and we lead later on in life. But again, I think I digressed a little bit too much on what I was the point of where I was leading to is having more meetup, me being men more being more able to go out and make the approach. We hear it in YouTube about approaching women and connections that way. It's the same way. We have to be okay with going up to other men and saying, hey, you know, you seem like a pretty cool dude. Let's go grab a fucking let's go watch a game. Let's go grab some fucking wings and watch the fucking Laker game. Are you a Laker fan, bro? I got beer on this one. You seem like a cool dude. You got time? Da 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 da. So what? He has a wife. So what? You're not fucking trying to fuck him or hook up with him. You're just trying to set up a bro date or whatever, and then try to see if you click with someone. You guys have the same views, something that could be meaningful. But it's gonna take effort. It's gonna take effort on your part, on our part, as men, to build, to water these relationships, to nurture these relationships to something meaningful, to something useful, to something that's gonna benefit us in those later years when we come into problems. We're not even getting into just what benefits that brings just in everyday life. We're looking at and for this conversation, we're looking towards the end, and that's what, and that's the benefit that we get, to have people around us that make those later years more bearable, more fun, more enjoyable, and will lead to us being off prescription drugs, will lead to slower suicide or way lower suicide rates in men, and depression in men, and it'll drop those rates down, where we're not losing men at this age through no fault of anyone's, except just some I mean, I guess there is blame to place, if you wanted to call it, but for just the place that society was learning the way we want to claim we know human psychology and human behaviors. We don't know. We act upon a bunch of stuff and we don't realize after until 10, 15 years later the effect that those some of these messages made, or some of these movements happened, or some of these correlated to these results until decades later. And unfortunately that's where we are now after almost 100 years of suck it up, don't men don't have friends. You focus on your family and your wife, and we go through all that, and then you go through the era of divorces and separations and the family breakdown as we are now, and the sheer disregard on stability, I guess, if you want to call it, of marriage. And through that all through that 100 years, the message has been the same. Just shut the fuck up, no matter what. Just suck it up. You're a man. Don't be a bitch. Deal with it. Life happens. But that's it. And as men, we do have a lot of surface level friends. Surface level interactions. I've been mentioning, the sports and hanging out to watch a boxing game, or maybe you have a close brother that you're close to, a close sister that you're close to. Some people are lucky, but the numbers are what they are, and they show an increasing number yearly, the wrong direction, not the right direction. So we have to be championing more commercially, more all around. It's okay. Let's have friends. Let's have this conversation of opening up. How and being okay with saying, hey, it's okay for men to hang out, for men to talk on a different level, to talk about depression, to talk about whatever issues. I mean, I guess I'm sticking with depression for whatever reason, but talk about anything. It's great. Like I said, it's great to have those other ones, but we need those interactions where we could just open up fully and let that go. That will lead to those depressions to come down, to lead to the no need for all these pills, because we're going to let all these emotions go. It's when we keep them in that builds up all these kind of evilness in your spirit, in your mind, in your soul. So the importance of making friends as men is through the roof. Get out there, meet people. It's your life at stake. When we enter these dark phases, it's from 1 minute to the next. So a lot of us think, hey, I'll get out of it. I'll work myself out of it. The numbers show that it's from one drink to another, and one cigarette, or one whatever coke binge, or one relapse that leads into depression, crying, alcoholism, that leads to souls that don't need to be lost, and men living in solitude and a depressed state, like caged animals. It's no nice way of going about it. Some through, yes, are their own fault, but as the numbers show, the study shows, most through not our fault, just through culture and just through what we've lived through that has told us to keep everything inside. And it's unfortunate, and it's a pandemic. That is a pandemic, or an epidemic, that needs to be addressed and needs to be brought forth by not only men's shows, but by all shows. So we take this problem seriously, to help those in need, if we really interested and serious about helping those in need. So I hope I made you guys think. I hope you guys like the topic. Like the channel, subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys for listening. Until next time.